Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Salam, dear listeners. I want you to close your eyes and imagine. Imagine that the most perfect human being is right in front of you. Imagine that your 12th Holy Imam is smiling at you. Imagine that you have the honor of listening to his precious words. How would you feel? Wouldn't it be the best feeling in this whole wide world? Today I want to tell you a story that will remind you that just like you and I are waiting for our Imam to reappear, the Imam too wishes to see us. Many hundreds of years ago, there lived a pious man in the city of Ahwaz, which is in Iran today. His name was Ali ibn Mahziyar. He had been a respected companion of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, our 10th Imam, and he was still alive at the time our 12th Imam went into Ghaiba. What a long life! Now this Ali ibn Mahziyar had a deep, deep longing in his heart. He spent every waking minute thinking only of this one thing. And at night, his dreams were also filled with this profound desire. He really, really wanted to meet the Imam of his time, Imam Mahdi. He wanted it so much that every year for 20 years he went for Hajj. Do you know how difficult traveling long distances was in those times? There were no aeroplanes or even cars. You would have to ride on a camel for months under the scorching Arabian sun to travel from Ahwaz all the way to Mecca. But for 20 years, Ali ibn Mahziyar made the long journey, knowing the Imam would be there and hoping desperately that they would somehow meet. But despite his efforts and his fervent du'as, he did not get to meet his beloved master even once. By the 21st year, Ali ibn Mahziyar had lost hope. With a broken heart, he decided to abandon his quest.
There is no point in going for Hajj again,
He thought to himself sadly. He decided to stay behind instead of going to Hajj like he did every year. That night, Ali ibn Mahziyar had trouble sleeping. When he finally fell into a fitful sleep, he had a dream. And in his dream, a voice called out to him. It said, "Oh, my dear servant, God has decreed that this year it will happen. God has decreed that this year your wish shall be fulfilled." These words filled his heart with so much hope and joy that he immediately woke up and got out of bed, falling into sajda before Allah.
"Thank you, my Lord,"
he cried out, with tears streaming down his face. In the morning, he quickly gathered his belongings and set off on the long journey. His first stop was the blessed city of Medina. He searched for any clues that would take him to his master, but there was none.
"Maybe Mecca is where I will find him,"
he thought to himself. Feeling deflated but still holding on to hope, he made his way towards the beautiful city of Mecca. He entered the city of Mecca and performed all the beautiful rituals of Hajj. He did tawaf around the Kaaba, and he walked between Safa and Marwa. He threw stones on Shaitan, and he camped in Arafah. And all the while his eyes searched every face he passed, and his ears pricked up at every voice that he heard, searching for his beloved, thirsty for just one glimpse of his beautiful face, his heart ready to explode with this intense longing for the Imam. But as the days passed and still there was no news of the Imam, Ali ibn Mahziyar's hopes started to dwindle. A horrible thought came to his mind.
What if my dream was false? What if I'm never allowed to see my Imam?
Horrified, he ran to Masjid al-Haram, tears streaming down his face. He had just reached the vicinity of the Kaaba when through his eyes he caught sight of a handsome young man doing tawaf around God's house. Ali ibn Mahziyar was drawn to this man. He hurried through the crowd until he was by his side and said salam. The young man looked at him carefully and said, Alaykum salam, dear brother. Where are you from?
I'm from Ahwaz.
Ali ibn Mahziyar replied. Ah, said the man with a relieved smile. Then perhaps you can help me. I'm looking for a man from Ahwaz. You might know him. His name is Ali ibn Mahziyar. Ali was startled to hear his own name come from the stranger's mouth.
It's me,
he said wondrously.
I am Ali ibn Mahziyar.
The young man's face broke out into a beautiful smile. My dear brother, welcome. I am a messenger from our master who you so dearly yearn to meet. He has sent me to talk to you. At these words, Ali ibn Mahziyar's heart soared and he could barely contain his joy. Could it really be? Yes, my dear friend, said the man, smiling at the wonder on Ali ibn Mahziyar's face. Rejoice, for Allah has given you permission. Go back now to where you are staying and say goodbye to all your friends. And at nightfall, meet me at the valley of Bani Amir. I will be waiting. Ali ibn Mahziyar respectfully bade his new friend farewell. His heart was overjoyed. He was so close now, so close to fulfilling his most precious dream. He went back to his residence and began to gather his things. He dressed in his best clothes, put on some perfume, tidied his hair, and sat on his prayer mat, busying himself with glorifying Allah. Night couldn't come fast enough. When it was finally time, he said goodbye to all his friends and hurried to the meeting location. Just as he had promised, the young man was standing in the valley, gazing peacefully at the moon. Ali ibn Mahziyar joyfully went to the man's side. Let's perform the night prayer together, he said. The two of them stood side by side, bowing and prostrating together under the vast night sky, the stars witnessing the love and submission of these two pious men. Close to dawn, they recited their Fajr prayers together, and finally, the young man lifted his head from prostration, stood up, and dusted off his clothes. It is time. Come, Ali, let us ride together. Ali ibn Mahziyar smiled at his friend and mounted his camel. Together, they set out through the desert. The sun had just risen when they reached a mountain range. The two riders stopped, and the young man turned to Ali ibn Mahziyar and said, Do you see anything? Ali ibn Mahziyar replied,
I see sand and some mountains.
The man smiled and said, Look closer, my dear friend. A little higher. Ali ibn Mahziyar carefully swept his gaze up the mountain, and suddenly, at the very peak, a luminous tent was visible to him. In fact, the light shining forth from this tent was so bright that Ali ibn Mahziyar wondered how he had missed it earlier. The young man dismounted from his camel and said, O Ali, this is the tent of your beloved Imam. Are you ready to go towards him? Ali had tears in his eyes as he said,
Yes, let's go.
He started to move his camel forward, but the man stopped him. Not like this, my dear friend. Come down from your camel. We will go by foot. Ali was surprised at this.
Why?
He asked curiously. We are nearing the home of the Imam, replied the man. Here, nobody can enter except the true believers, not even a camel. Ali ibn Mahziyar dutifully dismounted his camel and let it go free in the desert. Together they walked on, one foot in front of the other under the scorching sun. With every step, anticipation built up greater and greater in Ali ibn Mahziyar's heart, until he felt as if it might explode. When they finally reached the vicinity of the tent, the young man entered first. Ali ibn Mahziyar waited until he was given permission. A moment later, he came back out and said, "Glad tidings to you, dear friend, for you have been given permission to enter. Go inside now and rejoice, for you have come to a place of peace and blessings." This was it, the moment he had been yearning for 21 long years. With trembling hands, Ali ibn Mahziyar cast aside the curtain and stepped inside the luminous tent. His eyes fell immediately upon his beloved Imam, sitting and smiling at him. With a shaky voice, Ali gave the Imam his salam. As soon as he heard the Imam's beautiful reply, he couldn't control himself any longer. He threw himself at the feet of the Imam, laughing and crying at the same time, kissing the Imam's feet, his hands, his face. The Imam kindly sat him down next to him and said,
"O son of Mahziyar, I have been waiting for you for ages. What has taken you so long to come and meet me?"
Ali ibn Mahziyar was shocked to hear these words.
But, oh my Imam, Allah knows I have been striving and yearning for 21 long years to meet you. I have been making the long journey to Mecca every single year with the hope of getting just one glimpse of you. I have been waiting for you, O Imam, but I did not find anyone who could tell me of your whereabouts. How much ever I searched, no one could give me the information I needed to find you.
The Imam was surprised at these words and he shook his head.
"You couldn't find anyone who could tell you where I was?"
In a low voice, Imam gently continued,
"Indeed, many of my followers are not able to see me. Some of you accumulate so much wealth and do not share it with the needy believers. Some of you break off relations with your family members. What excuse is there for such actions?"
Hearing these words caused Ali deep shame and sorrow. He realized that Imam had expected more from him, and he felt sorry for falling short. Tears streamed down his face as he cried out,
I repent. Please forgive us.
Then Imam smiled as he spoke.
"Do you know what keeps you and all the other believers protected? It is that you pray for each other. Many times Allah forgives you because of the du'as of your brothers."
Imam's beautiful words deeply touched the heart of Ali as he realized how important it is for believers to build strong bonds together and pray for one another. Although it was difficult for Ali ibn Mahziyar to be separated once again from his beloved master, it eventually became time for him to take his leave. He kissed the Imam's hand one last time, took one last long look at his radiant face, and then he bade him farewell. On the way back home, Ali ibn Mahziyar was lost in thought. As glad as he was to finally have met the Imam, sorrow overtook him as he realized that the real reason their meeting had been delayed for so many years wasn't because the Imam didn't want to meet him. The Imam's words echoed in his mind. At that moment, a beautiful realization struck Ali ibn Mahziyar. The closer we are to one another, the closer we get to the Imam. One of the ways to reach the Imam, one of the ways to bring his zuhur closer, is to become kinder and more compassionate towards our Muslim brothers and sisters. Wow! How blessed Ali ibn Mahziyar was that he got to see the perfect and the best human being in this whole world. He got to hear the kind words full of wisdom from the Imam himself. Stay tuned for the next story in this series to learn about some of the characteristics the Imam loves in his special companions.
Aboard that cave.